a little over 20 years experience in branding countries and import-export trade development. So thank you for that insight.
Yeah, no worries.
Javiera, you're ready to run a political campaign. So what branding question do you have for Phillip over there?
I don't necessarily have one for myself. I'm just curious, how much have you been paying attention, thinking of these new congresswomen all these younger congresswomen who were elected, in November and then were seated in January. Many of them have robust social media platforms, and I just was curious what your take on it was. I think some of them have been very, really pretty brilliant in that venue, and I just was curious what your takeaways were.
Yeah, as it pertains to our new elected congresswomen, I'm both fans and supporters of all of them across the board. I think they're much needed reinvigoration to a party that, in my opinion only, has lacked true direction. So perhaps they'll get some direction through these young women that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of the hard work. Really, with social media and their use of social media, the tool, social media is a tool. It's not a strategy. And what I've seen from their work, and I follow actually all of them, is that they're honest. And
yep.
and that's really the number one thing that you can do in any of your communications, whether you're a politician, you're an organization, you're a brand. And I push people to do this from a value-based construct, right? That you should be transparent. You should be honest with those that you're trying to serve, which means if you mess up, we had a segment on our show called the brand F-Up. I'm sure you can figure out what the F stood for. And, we would make fun of brands who did that, but, when they apologized and the apology made sense, we would, give a good mark for that. When they didn't and they just gave us the usual runaround, it was just another excuse for us to make fun of them. So, what I think these congresswomen have demonstrated is that we as citizens are not children. Like we don't need to be lied to. We don't need to be coddled. We don't need to be told what we want to hear. We need to be told the truth. And I think they've gained the recognition and the success that they've had because they're honest. And so social media, in any way you're going to use it, should be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And it's interesting you brought the brand F-Up kind of concept and everything because, we just had the rematch. Naomie, you're glad that your team won again. I know that you're glad, so we're not even going to talk about that because I didn't go to Duke and I didn't go to Carolina, but I had dad associated with both of them. But the brand F-Up it was really interesting watching after the shoe exploded in the first game, the reaction of the competitors. Because from what I understand, Adidas was practically at Duke's doorstep the next day because they were like, well, that other shoe blew up. You might want to try our brand.
Yeah, as a Dookie, that was terrible for me. But I understand why it's an opportunity for others.
So I'm sure that other people can relate to that as well. So they were probably saying, because Naomie, you graduated, in what class did you graduate?
Oh, 93.
And what class did you graduate from Duke?
I was class of 99 for Fuqua. I went there for business school.
Okay, so you were a business school graduate. So both of y'all have had some real life experience in terms of addressing what's going on and things of that nature. Dean, I told you the phone was going to be jumping off the hook today, so did I lie? I think we had one more caller.
No, you didn't. We have Phillip Brubaker. He'll be coming in just 1 second.
Hey guys, want to get rid of that cable bill? How about getting a streaming media center? You can watch live TV, pay-per-view, all of the premium cable content, all of the sports channels, and every movie ever made. Pay for the box once, with no monthly fees, ever. Contact Dean 13 Media at 609-807-1175.
All right, we have Phillip Brubaker on the line. Welcome, sir, to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, doing good, Phillip. Oh, everybody on the call, everybody say happy birthday, Phillip, because it's Phillip's birthday. He called us on his birthday.
Happy birthday, Phillip.
Happy birthday.
Birthday, Phillip.
Thanks so much, everybody. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. Now, Phillip is an experimental filmmaker, among other things. So tell us how you got into that. And understand, Naomie, no, I did not do this intentionally. I forgot that the other Phillip was a Duke person, but he's also a Duke person. Phillip is.
So yeah, that's right. So I was fortunate enough to be in the first class of that program at Duke. It was the first year it was offered. It's the first ever MFA at Duke, which is not normally known for their arts. But I think that they're going strong in that field now. I graduated in 2013 with the MFA, and I remember thinking at first that it was kind of an unusual idea for a program mixing documentary and experimental. But then over the course of the degree, I learned that I think that there's a lot of similarities between those two forms of media. Actually, some that might be unexpected, but it was definitely a great experience, and it really it changed my life in some good ways.
Yeah, because one of the things that you talked about was just the fact that you said you might have an important announcement. So how is the film project going, and how far along are you with it? Because you said that you might have something that you were working on that was going to be developed. And if I remember correctly, you went to Duke, but then you moved out to the West Coast. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm in the West Coast now, actually. So, yeah, my birthday is 3 hours younger than it is where you guys are.
So tell us what brought you out to the West Coast, and are you finding it easy to do stuff in the documentary field in the West Coast? It's definitely a Hollywood kind of environment, but, it's more thought of as a traditional kind of Hollywood with the movies and the TV, not necessarily experimental kind of work. So that's probably something a little bit different that's not the norm in California.
Yeah, well, there is a scene out here for experimental work, probably more so than anywhere else in the country. And of course, that's still on the fringes of the industry. But one nice thing about experimental and documentary, I would say, is that you can really do it almost anywhere as long as you can get enough like-minded people to help you. And there's definitely a community of indie filmmakers here. And then the industry itself is this huge kind of monolithic force that's hard to break into. And I've only been here about 6 months, but I find that I've kind of been making ends meet by editing, actually, taking up some video editing gigs, because they're plentiful out here. And I think that documentary is definitely part of the industry in Hollywood as well. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the scene might be stronger for documentary in New York City. But definitely, there's a lot of people out here, whether they're in the industry or not, who are passionate about all types of filmmaking. And there's definitely people out here who can definitely share your passion and help you out if you've got some kind of a project.
Yeah, definitely. There's a whole lot of people that are getting into the documentary field. Of course, North Carolina has the Full Frame Festival, which is a big documentary, national and actually international festival that is very popular and things of that nature. Now, I'm guessing I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but we have two entrepreneurs and a political person that's running for office. So, if they wanted to get a editing of their commercial, you might be open to doing that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I'm a left-leaning person politically, but I know there are definitely filmmakers or definitely politicians out there that I support, and I'm open to edit, anything that I think is worthwhile. So you bet.
So you heard it here first, that if you have something that needs editing on the commercial side, because we know that that's another important part of business and branding is the whole commercial aspect. We now have a filmmaker that might be willing to do it. So we're just offering all kinds of services to everybody.
Yeah, man, I think, it's all about networking. If there's anything I've learned out here, it's really, you gotta network as much as possible. You gotta meet people, and that's how you end up getting work.
Yeah, definitely. And Javiera, if you're still here, I didn't want to leave you out of the conversation and everything. One of the things that I really found fascinating, I was reading this article recently, and I'm going to switch the conversation just slightly and everything, but I was reading this article, I think it was in something called 9th Street. It's a new magazine, but they were talking about how it is almost impossible to run for office without all the kind of salaries that y'all make. It was kind of arguing the fact that most of the people were in fields that were self-supporting. I didn't necessarily agree with the article. I think I understood where they were going with that because they were like talking about how I think one of our city council person is an attorney. Another one is a game developer. They know what I know about game developers. They don't really make that much money unless they have a big hit game. And then they talked about some other kind of like high income jobs. And the argument was that you really can't, you either need to have a supportive spouse or a supportive person on your team, or you can't, or they need to work on raising the money of those people that are in political office. So I was just wondering if you read that article and what you thought of it.
I did not read the article, but there have been a lot of conversations around us. You know, obviously we're not going to ask for raises for ourselves. Other folks will have to make that ask for us. You know, as city council members, our stipends aren't as terrible. If you look at, like, the folks in the General Assembly in North Carolina, their stipends are actually really, really low. And that's why you see so many independently wealthy and retired folks, is because really it's really hard to be in political office at the local and state level in most states. I'm not 100% sure. Now, part of that is depending on where you live, because we're a manager-run system, so we're not like what they call a strong mayor system. So LA has a strong mayor system, and so those council members actually make a good salary because their job is really to run the city, whereas in a manager-run system, the idea is the administration really runs the city, and there is continuity through whoever's in power, right? But as I think, you know, we live in an age now where people expect a level of responsiveness, and so I think it is getting more and more challenging.
Yeah, because they expect you to do so much on so little, and they also expect you to still maintain a household, because like I said, I know that you are also running a family, I mean, along with others in the family, but you also, like Naomie, are a family person, and Jamel, you have a family as well, right?
Yeah, that's correct. They're all grown and out of the house now. One is actually pursuing film and directing, but yeah, that is correct.
So how do all of you balance that? Because like I said, I'm the fortunate person, single at 50-something. I don't know if that's fortunate, but it's the way that life has treated me so far. But all of you are trying to balance career and these entrepreneurial kind of things, whether it's running for political office, whether it's doing a podcast and consulting, whether it's running these kind of alcoholic or liquor kind of companies and everything. But how do you manage to do that balancing act? And also, for those of you that have kids, are you encouraging them to get into the business? Because I'm curious, like Naomie, whether you want your kids to follow in your footsteps and Southern Wicked becomes like a 5-generation kind of a thing down the line.
You know, I tell my kids that, you know, creating generational wealth is a responsibility, and maintaining generational wealth is a responsibility that falls on their shoulders. And so what, you know, I've told them is, you know, as a young company, you know, my goal is to create generational wealth so that, you know, later on down the road, your children can do what they want to do in life, you know, so that down the road you can do what you want to do in life. But I do believe that there is a responsibility and that there must be participation because I have the saying that people don't appreciate what they get for free. And I think that's true even for children, you know, that when they just inherit wealth, you know, that there's a sense of entitlement. And sometimes they don't always treat that money that's given to them than when they earn that money. And so, you know, there is an expectation for them to help build this company so that later on in life they can see the fruit of the, you know, profits of this company to, you know, fund whatever they want to do later on. So, yes, I do have that expectation.
Yeah. And Javiera, that seems to be something that is very prevalent in the Latin community, this whole concept of trying to develop generational wealth and maintaining generational wealth. I'm thinking about how many people, you know, come here from other countries and we do all kinds of sacrificial things in order to maintain that wealth and in order to stay here, but also in order to develop and to becoming very productive citizens in the United States, in North Carolina, and wherever they wind up being.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably pretty relevant for most immigrant communities. You know, you definitely you're very aware that your parents gave up a lot for you, and so you're expected to perform. And you know, you're not going to see, not that this doesn't happen, but in immigrant communities. But, we kind of laugh about it. There's just an expectation that